Hello everyone, welcome to the next episode, the new episode of the Roker Rapport. Joining me today we have Callum, who's come back. He didn't top himself in the end, it turns out. How you doing, Callum?
Yeah, I'm okay. I'm recovered.
Okay,
I think.
slowly recovered. We've given it enough time now, haven't we? How you doing,
Maybe.
Tom? We've got Tom here, Tom 2.0. The first Tom may have actually been overcome with asbestos because we haven't seen him in weeks. So, how you doing, Tom?
Yeah, I'm great. I'm
Fantastic.
great, absolutely great. Yeah, good.
And as
On this
usual, we've
beautiful
got
day.
James. How you doing, James?
As well as you can be, I think.
As well as you can, yeah. And on that note, if you're wondering why we're all sounding so glum, apart from Tom, unaccountably, it's because we got battered by Stoke on Saturday, and proper battered as well. I mean, you would think as a Sunderland fan now that we're used to watching our side capitulate against teams that we should be gaining at least a point from, but it doesn't make it sting any less. So, who's feeling the most wound up about that? Who wants to go first? I'll give this one to. I'll tell you what. We'll give it to Callum. Callum, what did you make of that game?
I have to say, I'm not really that wound up about it anymore because I'm kind of just a bit numb to it, and I'm taking the David Moyes approach of I'm just going to sit in my chair and just kind of watch it happen around me as the chaos ensues and eventually destroys us all. So I was just kind of watching it and just thinking, yeah, that's about right. Peter Crouch kind of dominating us as he does in most games he plays against us, where we've just got no answer to him. The first kind of 10 minutes, 15 minutes, he was just peeling off onto the centre back, onto the fullbacks, and it was happening at free kicks in open play, and he was getting a few chances, bringing some balls down, and it was kind of it was coming. The first goal was just coming all day long, and then when it happened, I mean, I have to say it's a very nice touch. It's it's a decent shot and everything, but it's just we give the ball away in our own half, and we've done that so often this season. A lot of the goals against Burnley, against Swansea, the games where we've kind of shot ourselves in the foot have been, giving the ball away, not being tight enough to men, not communicating. It was just all around just a really sort of tepid, disgraceful display, really, where there were very few people to come out of it with credit. I think Defoe gets credit. Larson runs a lot; he always will. Other than that, I'm kind of struggling, and it just kind of shows the limitations not only of the players on the pitch but also of the manager. He kind of defended himself by saying that what he had on the bench wasn't really going to do anything more than what was on the pitch. But he had Azoro on the bench, and he used him in the League Cup, and he used him against Everton earlier in the season off the bench. So he has used him before, and substitutes off the bench aren't necessarily better than the players on the pitch. They're just a different option. Change it up, give you a bit of fresh legs, try something different, especially when you're already losing 3-1. So I just find the excuses that he's used just, kind of unacceptable and just representative of just what's been a really dour, just awful managerial tenure, really. But like I say, I'm just kind of resigned to it now. It's just kind of, I just kind of watch it happen.
Well, you bring up quite a few points there. I mean, yeah, with regards to the squad, the lack of effort, whether it's about quality, whether it's about commitment, the manager, tactical decisions before and after. I mean, we'll touch a little bit more on David Moyes in a bit, but as for the players and the substitutions, I would agree with that completely, wholeheartedly. I think most of us do. Most fans find it a bit mind-boggling that he didn't just make an effort, just do something, bring on a player. It doesn't matter,
Yeah.
Especially when it got to the second half or into the 60th minute, 70th minute, and you're thinking, well, he's going to bring on a right back next, isn't he? Do you know what I mean? Because that's typically what he does, and he failed to do that. So, yeah, I too feel resigned to it. What do you make of it, James?
Well, I think he must be making some sort of point or stance by not bringing anyone on, because anyone that was watching that game could see that it was crying out for energy and pace and just anyone to do anything. one thing that the youngsters will give you. They may not be as technically good as someone like Fabio Borini, but I tell you what, they're going to have more of an impact. They're going to try and stretch teams, and the fact that he didn't bring them on, in my opinion, it has to be some sort of stance to whether it be the owner or whoever, to say that, look, this squad isn't good enough. I mean, to be honest, the team he put out we could see what he was doing. I thought he made a mistake by bringing Djilabodji and O'Shea back together. I mean, it's a disastrous partnership. I mean, Papi Djilabodji, I had a few games a couple of months ago, but I mean, on the whole, he can't really be trusted, can he? He was absolutely terrible.
He definitely runs hot and cold at the same time, doesn't he?
He really does, and he was playing balls to Denier. I think whoever did the match ratings called them suicide passes. He's spot on, because he kept playing the ball to Denier when he didn't want it. He tried to end Charlie Adams' life, which I quite enjoyed. It seemed to just can't comprehend how to defend at times, and I think you look at how Stoke were playing, and they were obviously taking advantage of someone like Donald Love a hell of a lot. I mean, he could not handle Arnautovic all day. It wasn't helped by the fact that none of those back four can have any faith in that goalkeeper. He is awful. I mean, he's beaten his front post twice, and the attempt for Crouch's header is just pathetic. It's awful. He almost managed to let another one go under him. I think it was Shaqiri, wasn't it, in the first half?
Yeah.
I think it's the second goal is a good goal by Stoke. Let's. I mean, sometimes you've got to hold your hands up and say it was a lovely piece of play, but I'd still expect Vito Mannone not to be beaten at his near post, and he was. It was just too easy for them. It's too easy all over the bloody park, wasn't it?
I mean, we've heard it said about Vito that he needs a run of games in order to get into a flow where he's actually a capable goalkeeper. But to be honest with you, he's had quite a bit of a run now, hasn't he? And he's not making any fewer mistakes, which is a bit of a well, it's not a bit of a concern, it's a massive concern.
Well, he seems to be like 1 week I mean, against Liverpool, he was quality. Like, he really looked his old self. He's a good shot stopper. I mean, his distribution's always been terrible, but it just I cannot understand how a goalkeeper can have such little consistency. The last goalkeeper I saw who was as inconsistent as him was someone like Kelvin Davis. Honestly, he puts that kind of fear into me, having him between the sticks.
I think it's a mentality issue, though, as it is with quite a lot of players. I mean, we all know that Vito Mannone is a capable goalkeeper. We all know that he has rescued us on several occasions. He's helped us get to a cup final, so we know that the ability is there. It's just a case of he doesn't just make one mistake or have a bit of a wobbly 5 minutes. He has a wobbly game or 2 games. You know what I mean? Like, if you're a goalkeeper and you have a wobbly 90 minutes, that's just disaster. That's like, you will lose that game if you are the goalkeeper and you have a wobbly 90 minutes. You know, there are the better goalkeepers. They'll make one mistake every season or 2 seasons. You know, and even the average goalkeepers will make a mistake in a game and gather themselves, you know, and just do the simple things and really kind of compose themselves. Mannone does seem to have that 90-minute wobble that you don't really stand a chance if it happens. But I mean, it wasn't just Mannone. The second goal, fair enough, he leaves a gaping area at his near post, but that so many people let Arnautovic run. I think Denier lets him go, and then Donald Love just can't live with his pace or his power.
No.
And Donald, you can see Donald Love think, shall I try and set off and match his pace? Shall I try and get in front of him? And and Arnautovic is a strong, quick player, and Love just was not up to it at all. Djilabodji looks like if he defends successfully, it's an accident. Like if he manages to make a decent tackle or a header, or to actually do some composed defending, it's all kind of he just kind of throws himself at stuff, and if he gets it, great, and if he doesn't, he might have like a decent tackle, like a decent number of tackles completed a game, but that's because he literally goes for everything, like absolutely everything.
He does.
So you're gonna win more tackles if you go for everything, but you're also gonna miss a lot more.
Well, the thing about Papi, I will say on that note, is like is it possible that there are several mental factors involved when you consider that he's very recent, he's very new to the club, sort of thing. He was obviously sold, like apparently everyone was. He was sold a future that isn't quite as rosy as was actually given to him. Is it possible, considering it's the January transfer window, that his head's turned? You know, maybe he's thinking, look, oh, God, do I really want to be a part of this?
No one
Do I
would
want
want
to be a part of
What?
this?
No one would want him.
No, this is it. I agree. No one would want him. I'm not saying that he's like someone's going to come in for him and take him, or that someone's turned his head. But I'm saying, is he now looking at? I mean, has he ever been in a relegation battle? Has he ever been under this sort of pressure? And now he's sitting. When you consider as well that he didn't make it into his national squad, which was quite damning, and I imagine that's quite damning for him personally as well. I don't know. It seemed to me like for a while we were building up Chilabodji, and we were saying, yeah, like we've got a really good defender here, really good centre back, bargain on well, not bargain at 8 million, but certainly a good centre back. And I find it incredible that someone can go from having those sort of performances, particularly a centre back, from having a fantastic performance for 2-3 games, and then being as completely anonymous and hapless as he was against Stoke.
Now, say that was the issue. He only had 2-3 games. Before that, he was an absolute joke, and he's gone back to being an absolute joke.
It's typical. Isn't it?
Yeah, and well, on Saturday, it wasn't just the suicide passes to Denier, who he just seemed desperate to make Denier make mistakes. Then, like, he can't tackle, he can't read a game, and then what pretty much summed him up, where he tried to shepherd the ball out, completely just stopped looking. And then Shaqiri's nipped in behind it. That could have been like 4-0.
It was awful, that.
He's just a dreadful footballer, and he cost 8 million quid.
It's just typical, isn't it? It's a Sunderland signing all over.
Quickly back to Donald Love, because I did feel sorry for the lad, because I think he's been decent in recent weeks. But
Yeah.
I think we could all see within 10 minutes, 5 minutes of that game, they were, well, let's get it, Donald Love. He's not the most physical. He's not the quickest either. And Arnautovic bullied him. Now, David Moyes, to me, has to, regardless if he's got no depth or anything or whatever, he needs to change that round, whether that be bringing Love back into the centre of midfield and putting Denier at right back just to cope with that aerial presence. But the fact he didn't do anything there, I thought was shocking, because it was so evident that was going to be a problem for us all afternoon.
We essentially left the poor lad hung out to dry there.
Yeah.
It's like their tactical game was to just lump it at him, and then by half time it's done. So not even at 1-0, not even 1-0 did Moyes think, oh, hang on, this is not working. We'll do what we did against Burnley. We'll put Denier back into the defence, and we'll put Love with Rodwell. And I know we didn't win against Burnley, but a 0-0 is better than 3-0 in 30 minutes. There's no thinking behind these decisions.
Before the match, we had a little make your case on the site, and I was an advocate for putting Denier in midfield, despite his great game at Burnley. And the reason for that was I was utterly convinced, that Chilabodji, coupled with the old head of John O'Shea, would be able to handle whatever Stoke could throw at us. Because I was that. What's the word I'm looking for? I just did not expect anything like that. That level of defending was absolutely shocking. I was left sitting there going, God, I'm so wrong. Do you know what I mean? It hasn't even strengthened the midfield like I thought it would. To be fair, he had an off game anyway. I mean, yeah, playing him out of position in midfield, so that might be it. Maybe he did really enjoy his time as centre-back and thought, yeah, I belong here. But, yeah, I thought it was absolutely crazy. That second goal in particular drove me insane. Because it's they said that they were really bigging it up. Like, oh, it's a fantastic goal, little 1-2, 1-2. So I agree, sort of. But this might as well be a training ground. And those might as well be dummies that you're moving around. Because they were like statues.
Well, they are.
Yeah, they were like statues, weren't they? So it's like you would expect anyone in the Premier League, anyone worthy of being in the Premier League, to be able to do a 1-2, 1-2 between statues and dummies, because they didn't move. They were rooted to the spot. Like, oh, what's happening? Oh no, it's in the back of the net. Do you know, it was just shambles.
The thing with Denier is, I mean, he's not a midfielder. He traditionally is a centre half, but that he has to be able to pass the ball better. As a professional footballer, you've got to be able to pass the ball 5 yards. He gave the ball away in the run up to all 3 of Stoke's goals. I mean, I think that's unforgivable, really. We can bail him out saying that Pappy, gave him suicide passes all day, but he still gave the ball away in very, very easy situations. The whole midfield 3, to be honest, we all had a go at Seb Larsson, didn't we, last week? I mean, he did what he usually does. He runs around, did absolutely nothing other than that. I mean, at least he seemed to care. I mean, Jack Rodwell, I mean, you know what I think of him. And that chance, it was quite like Leicester last season, wasn't it? When you thought, when it fell to him, you thought, is this it? Is this when Jack Rodwell finally, is this his time to shine? And it almost hit the fucking corner flag, I think.
It's never going to happen. We should just stop thinking it's going to happen. He's had his chances. This is not happening. I give him a bit of leeway because deep down you want it to work, but he's just not ever going to. He's just not. He's not. He might be good somewhere else, but it's not working here at Sunderland. And he'll probably be playing in the Championship with us next year, and we still won't be able to get rid of him.
And he still won't be any good.
And he still won't. Scott would have won a game or something.
But yeah, we've got some questions on Twitter as usual. Talking about players that we think are terrible. We definitely thought Borini was terrible, and he just hasn't looked even a shadow of what he was, which was never He was never pulling up trees in the league, do you know what I mean? And he doesn't even look like he can be bothered anymore. With regards to the questions, we've got a lad called Adam Morley. Do we cash in on Borini and buy players? Now, we all had a little laugh when we arranged this question because there's no way that we'd get anything for Borini. But certainly to bring up the idea of cashing in on him, what would you say about that, Callum?
I'm quite a big fan of Fabio Borini. I mean, I admit I will hold my hands up and say,
and that's why I've given this to you.
He was not good at the weekend. He is playing wide right, which I think isn't his best position. I think
where is
he's been. I think like inside forward on sort of the left hand side, coming onto his right foot. I think is his best position, but. I think he's had injuries this season. He's coming back. He's had a lot of injuries when he's been with us last season as well, and sort of towards the tail end of the season is usually when you start to see his form. I admit that is not good enough, and we need a full season out of him, and we need to see consistency. I didn't think he was spectacularly lazy at the weekend. I think Januzaj was worse. But I agree that we haven't been getting enough out of him, and that he certainly needs to apply himself a bit more, and he needs to kind of find another level to really help us get out of the trouble that we're in. But I have to say I wouldn't sell him. I think he's important in terms of. He's got that he's got that little bit of quality that I think other players don't have, and I would question whether we could get another player who would offer what he can offer. But I mean, I completely understand people's frustrations with him, and I have to say my soft spot is kind of nostalgic, and I'm not usually a nostalgic person at all. But I think that he does have quality, and he has grafted in the past. We know he can graft. There's a lot of players out there who actually aren't grafting, and we've seen them graft before. Apparently Kazri's been labelled as lazy, even though we've seen him graft, and Defoe looked a bit kind of stroppy, and Van Aanholt looked a bit stroppy, and there does seem to be a bit of a bit of trouble in the camp. And I wonder whether that's coming from the manager, because his attitude isn't great, and he exudes a kind of negativity and a bit of a bit of a stroppiness that can't help players actually want to play for him. And I know people say players should want to play because they're paid this amount of money and they're professionals and blah blah blah. But at the end of the day, they're people, and if you like your boss and you respect your boss and you're getting praise from your boss and support, you're gonna try harder. It's just a fact about human nature. Whether you're paid $100,000 a week or a couple of £100 a week, it's just a fact that if you respect your manager or your boss more, you're going to try harder. So I agree he needs to do more, but I wouldn't sell him.
So Callum thinks that Borini is a victim of the system, and those are some valid points. Actually, I agree with that in a humanistic sense. What do you think of it, Tom? Because I can tell you're desperate to get at this question.
I'll drive him wherever he wants to go, because it's not that we get anything for him. There's a bit of a Callum was touched on there about nostalgia, and that's really the only thing he's got. He's not a good footballer. He runs around, shows like, bigs the crowd up and that. But if we're being honest, what games has he actually performed? He doesn't seem to offer something that Januzaj does, but gets away with far much less stick that Januzaj does, because I don't know, Januzaj's not bigging up the crowd and doing all this stuff. I think when we bought him back under Advocat, I thought it was a bit of a weird move, a panic buy through the good old Lee Congerton days. It was one of these players that we didn't need at the time. We needed a big man up front, and what we got was another winger to go in this system at the time, which didn't fit at all. And since he's come back, you can count on like one hand how many decent games he's had. It's like Norwich away, but then everything clicked, and Chelsea at home is the same. Everything clicked. There's not been any games in my head of late that you think, oh yeah, Borini's really changed that for us, and Borini's done, he's really grafted and he's really pulled one out of the bag. The time he does pull one out of the bag is when it's 3-0, doesn't really matter. And I might be being a bit harsh. I feel I might be being a bit harsh on him, but I'm just getting sick of it.
Yeah. I agree in a sense, but at the same time, I completely disagree about it, because when you consider him last season, he wasn't just... first of all, he's not a winger, is he? He's a striker. That's the biggest problem for him, which Callum touched on. For me as well, that's another thing that wound me up about the tactical decisions with the substitution. Do you know what I mean? Yes, he was having a terrible game. Borini was having an absolutely abysmal game. Why not take him off? Bring on one of the younger lads who's more suited to playing on the right wing, which would have been Asora. Although Asora technically is a striker himself, but he has a lot more experience playing on the wing and making those runs. But as for Borini, last season, man, you'd find him everywhere. He was all over the midfield. And then he was back. I've seen him clear the ball off the line. Do you know what I mean? For me, at his best, I agree with Callum. I agree that he has a touch of class. But what he is now, it's a moot point, because he's absolutely useless to us at the moment. I don't know what's happened to him, but he doesn't bring anything.
I'm with Tom. I actually don't think he offers anything apart from nostalgia. I think he gets away with so much because he runs about, but he's never going to be a player who grabs a game by the scruff of its neck and says, right lads, I'm having this, like a Jermaine Defoe will. And he wants to play down the middle. I've said this in past podcasts. He wants to play down the middle, but every time he's been played down the middle, he's not really performed to it. I can't remember him really having a real standout game. When you mention the games where he's apparently played really, really well, he's never been the standout performer in those games. He seems to play well when everyone's playing well. I don't want a player who only turns up when everything's going right. I want him to grab a game by the scruff of the neck, and he to me, he doesn't have the ability to do it. I love Fabio for his goal against the Mags and that phenomenal goal in the cup final, but I just don't think he's good enough. I just don't. You look at his goal scoring record in his career. I haven't got it to hand, but I'd be baffled if it's better than 1 in 10.
So we're divided in the ranks. I think we might put up a Twitter poll for this now, actually, to go with this. Just see what the people think. Right. Yeah. Well, enough about Fabio Borini. The game was terrible, and we've covered most of how terrible it was. We touched on David Moyes earlier. What are we making of that now? Because he's had a long time. I mean, certainly by Sunderland managerial standards, he's had a long time. He's an old head, actually, technically. But I don't understand him. I've said before, I don't understand his tactical decisions before a game, and I don't understand his tactical decisions during a game, which is it's a bit telling, really, because I'm not. It's not because they're so fantastic, and I'm not a manager. It's I find it puzzling. I think most people do. With regards to not bringing the kids on, it's been said that some of them aren't. They're not worth it. It's been said that they can't make the step up right now. They're not ready at the moment. But for me, why even put them on the bench? And this is it. Why have a bench if you aren't going to use it? Why have a bench if you can't use it when you're 3-1 down against Stoke and then turn around and whinge about how, well, it wasn't going to do any favours anyway, it wasn't change anything. I think you touched on it, didn't you, James? You mentioned that there's clearly some sort of ulterior motive there. Do you know what I mean? And with regards to that, where do you think that's going to get him? Do you think that he can turn around to short now and say, look...
I mean, I'm still behind David Moyes. I've set my stall out. I don't think actually many fans are talking about giving him the sack anyway. But he had very, very few options, didn't he? I mean, we have got a massive injury list. Couple that with 3 players who've gone to the African Cup of Nations. The players that he picked, as I said, they're the only ones he's got. So I guess his job is the way to find a way to get the best out of them. Without Victor Anichebe, I do find that we don't seem to have much of a plan. We do lump the ball up to a 5-foot-odd Jermaine Defoe. Januzaj's weak. He lumps the ball up to him and Borini, who we've already covered. He's running. He is running out of time, and a lot of fans will be losing patience with him. But I think we do have to sympathise with the fact that he doesn't have very many options here. It's not like he has. You looked at Stoke's bench at the weekend, and there was a lot of Premier League experience there. I mean, they had Afellay on the bench. I mean, didn't he come through Barcelona's academy or something? I mean, you look at our bench, and it's just a bunch of kids, and you have to sympathise with him because
no, you don't. You don't. Sorry, you don't.
You do because how
this on the commentaries, you have to feel sorry for. You forget that at the beginning of the season, he had a full strength squad, and it was still no plan. There was still no plan.
But he never had a full strength squad. He never really had that much money to spend either. I think like people are saying, oh well, he spent 13 million on Ndong. We know he didn't spend 13 million. Only spent a couple of million. He's probably barely spent £5 to £10 million on a team that was desperate.
No, but that's the same situation that previous managers have been in with limited funds and with we know that in previous years we haven't spent money up front. We're still paying.
They've
for other
never
players.
had this injury crisis. They've never had 11.
Well, yeah, but how do we
16 players there?
A lot of these injury crises, a lot of these injury problems happen. They are muscular injuries, hamstring injuries. A few of them aren't.
We've lost 4 through to knee injuries, which that is just sod's law.
But how do we know that some of his training and fitness regimes aren't causing some of these problems? This is my issue. There's an assumption or kind of an idea that David Moyes is not responsible for anything at all. And of course he is responsible. If I'm employed by someone and they change a circumstance or they change my targets or they ask me to do something impossible, I can either say, well, I'm not doing that, I'm going, or I can get on with it. If I'm collecting a wage, and instead what he's doing is he's huffing and he's from day one he's been cultivating this idea that any success that he gets is great, but if anything goes wrong, it's not his fault.
I do agree. I do think that you make a lot of good points, and he has made errors. I just think we should afford him a little bit more time, just because he has been given duff hand, in my opinion.
But he's signed 2 African players for the most spend. I know you're saying it's not spend right now, but we are going to spend that money eventually. So he signed 2 African players in an African Cup of Nations year when we've already got a small squad. Now, for me, no one's talking about that. And fair enough, Djilobodji hasn't gone, but we already had Kone, we already had Kazri, and then he signed Ndong and Djilobodji. And so that's 4 players, and he was saying at the beginning of the season we haven't got many players. We need to add to the squad. Now, these are decisions that he has made, and knowing full well that it's an African Cup of Nations year, knowing full well that the squad isn't very big, and knowing full well that he hasn't got a lot of money to spend. Now,
yeah, but I think just to play devil's advocate on that, I think both of those signings were in. They were almost set up by Sam, weren't they? I know Dundong definitely was. They weren't necessarily a David Moyes signing, and he didn't have that much time to go out and find someone. So maybe he's just gone along with it.
Well, right, fine, but if he doesn't want the responsibility on his head, he can leave and he can stop collecting his wage. If he's here and he is the manager, he is picking the players, he is ultimately signing the players, I'm going to blame him for it. I'm not going to say, oh well, we'll just blame Sam, or we'll blame Dick Advocate, or we'll blame Lee Congerton or Paolo Di Canio. If he is collecting the wage, I expect him to get on with it and to not moan and to not be negative and not try to play games with the owner to get more money and use young players on the bench, destroying their confidence to try and achieve it.
I do agree there.
Let's continue.
And we hear today that he's refusing to loan out a young player now because the squad's so small, but he won't play them even in the cup. It's ridiculous.
Well, on that note, I mean, let's take both of your opinions into account there and say, let's say if he has to go, then when? Because I mean, James is saying, well, he needs a bit more time. You've got to consider that it's now the January transfer window, and we're not going to get, if he doesn't go now, then whoever replaces him won't have an opportunity to make any kind of impact or their own imprint on the squad. So if he does need to go, how much time do we give him? If we do have to give him time, how much time does he get? Does he get until the end of the season? At which point we'll probably, well, at this rate, we will be relegated. And then who better to have in the Championship as a manager than someone like him? I don't know. It's definitely a hot subject, hot topic. Yeah, I do blame him for certain things, and I agree with Callum in the sense that he's accepted the job. But basically, he was given the task. People are saying, oh, he was lied to. He was lied to by such and such. He was lied to by Ellis Short. Doesn't matter. That makes him either naive or stupid. Either way, that's his responsibility. Do you know what I mean? Because if he sat there knowing, and when you consider that he's spoken to Sam Allardyce beforehand, supposedly, can you even imagine what Sam Allardyce had to say about it? Do you think he turned around and said, oh yeah, get in there, Moisey, because you got loads of money, the owner's wicked, do you know what I mean? It's fantastic, it's a great place to be. I doubt he said that.
That's a very good point. Obviously, these managers are clearly friends in real life. Like I say, in real life, it's not Football Manager. Sorry. Yeah, they clearly talk all the time. I'm sure like Allardyce had clearly told him, "Oh, it's a great club to go and manage, but beware. There's these things. It's like they've not got much money. There's issues with some of the players. Some of them want to leave. Blah de blah. You're not going to get these loan players back. So it's like you said, he's not gone, oh yeah, it's mint, mate, it's so much money everywhere, and it's like those Chinese teams just dishing out money, and you win every week.
Scrooge McDuck, do you know
yeah,
what I mean?
just dishing out.
I've seen him literally dive into gold coins.
But he's taken the job with what, 6 weeks before the end of the transfer window? It's like he signed a contract, and Ellis Short has said to him, oh, by the way, transfer window closes on the 31st of August. And as though he has no idea that that's how long he's got. As though like it's news to him that he's not going to have very long to bring in his players. And he even tries to blame the fact that Jermaine Lens is off in Turkey on the fact that other people have told him about what his attitude's like. He said, oh well, I had to base it on what other people were saying about Lens. All right, yeah, David, don't base it on the fact that for the first 3 games of the season he was our best player. Like, don't base it on that. Obviously, base it on other people telling him what to do. He's just constantly dodging responsibility while ironically saying that the players need to take responsibility. He refuses to fail with them and just pushes them under the bus whenever they lose or whenever they capitulate. And a manager who refuses to fail with his team is not going to have the team's full support because he's just hanging them out to dry every time.
And also, he must have loads of mates in the media because now it's a case of he's always like, oh, poor old David Moyes, and like Chris Sutton on BT or BBC or one of the two, he's saying, oh, he should just go. He should get out there as quick as possible and just forget this ever happened. It's just like, do any of you watch football? It's like, it's not how this works. He took the job, you have to see it through, and don't just keep moaning about it. He was moaning in August. We'd only played 2 games. He said, all right, we're going down. And it's just like, what do you want to hear from your manager about that? Under Allardyce, it was more of a case of, we're all in this together. And if we go down, we go down together. Not, if we go down, it's their fault. And it's just like, there's nothing I could do. I mean, and then you have Sutton saying, you should just get off. Just like, right, okay,
mate. Let's be honest, Chris Sutton's just an absolute bellend. Listening to him on the radio, he was on 606, and he just, how dare that man sit there and criticise Sunderland fans for, in inverted commas, leaving early. I think Jason Mohammed as well, the host, he was saying Sunderland fans are leaving after 20-odd minutes. What a load of rubbish. These lads, they sit there, they get paid to travel up and down the country, stay in 5-star hotels to watch that. We all pay to watch that. We pay to watch that absolute drivel. And we've been stuffed with it season after season after season, constant capitulations. How dare he have a go at Sunderland fans saying, they're leaving early? West Ham the other week, the stadium was bloody empty after half an hour, but no one mentioned that because they're in bloody London. Yet Sunderland fans leave because yet again they see another capitulation, and the media seem to just jump on it. It drives me wild. Ran over there.
There was
since you brought it up, let's discuss the idea of leaving early, fans leaving early. Obviously, I think we brought it up before. We brought it up a couple of months ago now, but different times. You know what I mean? Things have obviously steadily gotten worse since then, with a few bright beacons of hope that are quickly snuffed out every now and then, every other week. So, what do we make of this? What do you think about fans leaving early, Tom? Sorry. Do you think they should do it? Do you think they should be allowed to do it? Do you think anyone has the right to challenge them on it?
I personally don't do it. I've only walked out of 2 games in my life. But when it's like, when we're getting walloped to like half time, then I can't really blame anyone for doing that. What annoys me more is when we're winning. We're winning David Moyes even said that it was a bit of a dodgy ground for him to start treading on now, calling out fans. But like for instance, when we were winning 1-0 against Watford back in December, and it should be because we don't win often. You think everyone would stay to enjoy this moment. And we're hanging on at 1-0. You think because everyone's a bit on edge. You think, the stadium should be packed. It should get the boys over the line. But then you look around, and there must have been about 18,000 people left in that ground when we won 1-0. So the players are turning around clapping. There's no bugger there. I mean, don't get me wrong. I have no issue with them walking out against Stoke or Aston Villa or Arsenal, or I don't know, we could just name every single team. Every team.
Could have be here all night.
Yeah, or Notts County or Northampton. But it's just, I don't have a problem with that, but it does look bad on the telly. And for some reason, the media narrative is now Sunderland never. It's essentially what they're saying is Sunderland fans never stick behind their team, and it's like apart from because no other team in the league, none of their fans leave early at all. I mean, you touched on West Ham, but I've seen you go to Swansea getting smashed at home. They've all gone home. It's just what football fans do.
It is. It's completely normal. In no way are Sunderland fans any different. It's absolute rubbish. BBC are right on it all the time as well. I would in no way criticise the fans. I think the fact that they turn up week in, week out to watch what's genuinely a pretty crap football team is just absolutely outstanding. To be honest, I think David Moyes is a bit naive even mentioning it. He should really just, at any moment like that, if someone asks him a question about fans leaving early, just praise them and then move on. You don't want to get into that Gus Poyet situation where, because Gus criticised the fans a couple of times, didn't he? And if anything's going to make the fans lose patience more than the football that's being played, is if you've got a manager who, as Callum said, can be very dour, having a go at the supporters, which he shouldn't really be looking to do.
But I mean, for me, when I go to a football match, it's kind of that's my day. Do you know what I mean? That's what I'm doing that day. So I don't really care about like leaving early and getting public transport and because or sitting in traffic because it's just one of those things. Part of you going to a football match, it's busy, it's crowded, so it's gonna you're gonna have to wait. And I don't understand people who sort of go and then think, oh well, I tell you what, I'm gonna win here because I'm gonna be the first one away. I just that's a bit weird. But if there's people with like I've said before on the podcast, like you said, we mentioned it. If there's people with young kids or if they've got to be somewhere, then they've got to be somewhere. And if the performance is as ridiculous as it was, then people are well within their rights to go, and people are obviously well within their rights to go whenever they want. But and to be honest, I sit around some rather irritating people, so it can be quite a cathartic experience when people leave early for me. But at the same time, obviously, it doesn't look good. The people in the media latch onto it because it means they don't have to really talk about the game that much. They can talk about something else, and because they haven't really watched the game. You hear them saying, "Oh, you watched this game, didn't you?" But they're all watching 8 games. They're not going to have any real spectacular insight into it.
It's a very good point.
I just think it's something for the media to talk about. It's a controversial subject. It will generate conversation and a bit of debate. And I just think it's a bit of a nothing subject. I think it detracts from the performance on the pitch. And I think David Moyes should have said, the fans have shown up. The fans have paid their money. Our guy, those guys on the pitch are paid money to be here, and we didn't show up today. And that's what he should have said. Not, let's not criticise the fans here. We're paid to do a job, and we haven't done it. That's what a normal human who is capable of feeling emotion would say. But David Moyes instead he just latches onto these questions and doesn't think about it. The press officer at Sunderland must hate his job right now. They must hate their job.
So does Moyes by the looks of it.
Yeah, well.
Don't we all? Don't we all?
Don't we all, exactly. No one loves it. Well, on that note, we've got, obviously, we're playing Burnley on Tuesday, but we're not going to touch too much on that. We're just going to hope for the best, really, I suppose. Moving on to the league, though, we're obviously against West Brom next Saturday. So, how are we feeling about that? What do you think about West Brom, James? After that display on Saturday against Stoke, what do you think we're going to make of all this?
Well, I'm one of the more positive ones. I do think it'd be quite Sunderland to go and this usually after they've capitulated they'll come back and they'll put on a battling performance and we'll probably go and get a point or something. But West Brom is a tough place to go this season, isn't it? It's not the same as it was last year. They've got some really, really good players. They've just bid 10 million for Jake Livermore as well, so they've obviously got some money to spend. There's a bit of a feel-good factor going on there. They got hammered by Spurs at the weekend, but the way Spurs are playing, that's not a massive surprise, is it? They've got Dele Alli and Kane completely on fire. As long as Moyes learns from the weekend, I'll be happy. He can't play O'Shea and Djilabodji at centre half. They don't work as a pair. Whether or not he brings Donald Love into midfield like he did against Burnley would be interesting. I was going to say I'd like to see the kids play. I'd like to see a Soro or whoever come in for someone like Fabio Borini, whether he will or not. Who knows? Victor Anichebe, if we can get him back, obviously playing against his old club and a club that he didn't exactly do very well at, that could be invaluable, really.
That's a good point. For my part, I would say that we're certainly, if we were to bring on, if David Moyes was to bring on the youth, that would give everyone a bit of hope, wouldn't it? A little injection of hope and possibility that obviously the Sunderland fans are currently lacking. Do you know what I mean? Even if just make the effort. Even if you're going to put, why not try? Why not try starting one of these young lads instead of sitting there and thinking, oh well, I might bring them on with 70 minutes to go or with 70 minutes gone because they might change the game, and then turn around and saying that actually they won't change anything, so I'll just leave them on the bench. Why not try starting? Do you know what I mean? Start a Soro instead of Borini. Use that as his punishment for his terrible form. Start Soro instead of Borini. Give him 20 minutes. And then use... Because this is the point. How many times has David Moyes now gone entire games without making substitutions? I mean, really, of the substitutions that he has available to him, how many has he even made? I have to look that up. But I'm sure it's a pathetically, staggeringly small amount. And people say we've got a weak squad and a weak bench, but at the end of the day, it's all about physics, isn't it? It's tired legs. Do you know, imagine Joel Asoro against those tired legs on Saturday. Imagine that. That would have been perfect. But regardless of that, I'm certainly a fan of bringing them in. That's what I would say. With regards to go on, mate.
I was just going to say, why not play a midfielder in midfield, and then you can put your centre back who played well at centre back in centre back. I know I should be locked. I should be locked away. But why not? Why not play someone like Honeyman, or why not play him in central midfield? Give him a go. It can't be any worse than Jason Denayer sort of setting up opposition chances in his own final third of the pitch. It can't. How could it be worse? I don't like, and I just think if you move Denayer back, and you have a bit more balance, a bit more kind of people playing in their proper positions, and surely that can only be a good thing. But West Brom will be too much for that squad. They just will. I mean, they're not kind of the sort of team who can only play a certain way. They've got good players who can play fairly decent football this season. Matt Phillips offers them a bit of pace. I'm a big fan of his. And the Chadley and Rondon up front is a big physical threat, but they can also kind of grind out results. And they've got they're solid. Their defense is excellent. For me, it just looks like a nightmare away game.
Well, I mean, the troubling thing about it is obviously after he's talking about how James was talking about how brilliant Spurs are playing. After West Brom, we've got Spurs. Do you know what I mean? Spurs, Palace, Southampton, Everton, Man City, Middlesbrough. I mean, it's not looking pretty for us. We need points, and we need them fast, to be honest. Otherwise, we're just going to be left caught, cast adrift.
Do you know who scored last time we won it at the Hawthorns in the Premier League? No,
No.
Anthony Talak.
Away in the record low points season.
Yeah,
first win of the season.
Yeah, bobbled it in. So
goodness.
I've been to the Hawthorns 7 times. I think this will be my 7th time, and I've seen us get 1 point. So don't hold out any hope.
So it's your fault, Tom.
Yeah, it's my fault, mate. It's all my fault. I saw Catamol score a 30-yard screamer, though. There was that.
That
was
top
quite
notch.
good. Yeah, that was good.
Top notch.
Well, apart from that, it's been rubbish.
Sweet and watercolour memories, eh? All right, well, we'll do quick predictions next. So for the game on Saturday, I'm going to go with. I don't know why. I'm going to say. Well, actually, Manoni's in goal, isn't he? Oh Christ! Actually, no, we're going to lose. So I was just going to give us a win there, but I was just thinking, no. Actually, we've only got about 2 goals in us, but Manoni could definitely concede 3 or 4. So, yeah. Well, no, I'll tell you, I'll stick with a draw. I'll give it a 2-2 draw. What about you, Callum?
I'm going to go for a disgustingly depressing 1-0 loss.
Ugh.
I think we'll be in the game for a while, and then it'll sort of Gilabodji will just smack it off Manone's face into the goal.
Oh God, that sounds horrible.
1-0 loss, something like that.
What about you, Tom?
3-0 West Brom, 2-0 down within 30 minutes, and then we have a bit of a push second half, and then errant back pass 3-0.
Well, I'm going to take that to the bookies. Actually, you sound quite confident. I'm sure I can get something to accumulate that. What about you,
that sounded like a report.
James.
I'm preparing for Sunday.
I'm going to go. No, I'm going to be positive. I'm going to go 2-1 Sunderland. I think Defoe brace. How are lads? Come on.
Someone's got to be positive. All right, fair enough. Well, that's all we've got time for. Thanks for joining me today, lads. Thanks for listening to us, people. That's pretty much it. Until next week, don't forget you can subscribe to us on the Acast app and iTunes. And till then, this is the Roker Rapport signing